everyone, it's Meg with Fine Designs by Megan, and today I'm going to do one of my most requested tutorials, and that is my photo collage V-split tumbler. I have been trying to come up with ways to do a cool cup with photos instead of just making it, you know, individual pictures everywhere, and I wanted it to be special. And I made this the original one I made for my grandmother for Mother's Day, and I wanted to have all of the pictures of my kids from their spring pictures. And I could not figure out a cool, cute way that would make it stand out. And I was looking at a photo collage, and it just hit me, why don't I put a photo collage on a tumbler? And so this is my version of my picture tumbler of a photo collage V-split. I'm going to show you from start to finish how to do it, how to make it on your computer, to add all your photos in, to print it off. What you're going to need for this is you're going to need your blue, or you can use 631 vinyl. It really doesn't matter. I use the 831 stencil vinyl to do my stencil, and you don't have to use a stencil to do this, or your template to do your V-split template. You don't have to use that. I just prefer to use it because it makes it easier when I go to collect all of my photos on my computer before I print them out on printable vinyl, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to want to print it out on printable vinyl. You can do a water slide. I just do printable vinyl. It's easier for me. And when you do your template on the computer, it just makes it so much easier because it's already sized exactly how your V-split is going to be sized on your tumbler. Okay, so you don't have to try to figure it all out in your head and trying to make it all estimate out. It's already going to be done that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to show you from start to finish how to do it. So let's get started. Okay everyone, so now that we're ready to start, I have my stencil vinyl that I've already cut in my V-split pattern, and I have a 20-ounce straight skinny. This one's going to be a tiny bit off, but we're going to work with that, and I'll show you guys how to fix that. This template is originally for a Hog brand, but this is a MakerFlo brand, so it's a little bit wider, but it's okay. We're not going to worry about that. So what we're going to do first is I've already trimmed mine a little bit. Make sure that your V-split is the way that you need it to be. And then just I always do mine this way and push it all the way to the end, okay? And I trim mine first. It's just what I do. It's easier for me. If you have a different way of doing it, do it your way, however you wrap yours. This is just how I wrap mine. And I'm just gonna lay it down and make sure that it's gonna meet evenly, and it does. So I'm just gonna press this with my fingers down, and that way it's all sticks. And since it's cut, you just kind of got to be a little bit careful. And I'm going to make sure that it's still going to meet up perfectly, and it is perfect. So I'm going to press mine down right there. Okay. I'm going to grab my handy dandy little tool that I got from Vinyl Craze. I will link it if you are interested in it. I got adhesive on it. And I'm going to use that to help me press down all of this as I go. So I'm just going, this is how I do mine. I just push it and press it as I go. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit so my video isn't 2 hours long. One part that I missed out on, your template that you buy, which I'll link down in the description box, it will actually tell you how long or how your lengths are going to be for a 20 straight skinny. As I'm pressing my vinyl down, if it sticks to your carrier, the bottom piece, don't worry too much about that. Just make sure your top main pieces, the thin line and your top piece where your pictures are going to go, are completely down. Once you get it completely down and smooth it out, you're going to remove that bottom piece anyways and spray paint it the color of your first glitter, which I'm going to go do that real quick. Okay, now that I have my bottom painted, I'm going to use Rose Gold Opal, Skinny Rose Opal, Flynn, and Zodiac from Peachy Olive Glitters to do my glitters. And I'm going to start out with the Rose Gold Opal on the bottom. And then I will move up to the middle part and do the chunkier glitter, which is Flynn first. And then we'll go over Flynn with Zodiac. You don't have to use chunky in the middle. I just prefer to do the chunky in the middle, but it's your choice. Then I'm going to Mod Podge my bottom. If you want to do the epoxy method, do that. I usually do the epoxy method, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and do the Mod Podge on the bottom. And once it is Mod Podge, I'm going to move pretty quick, and I'm going to put the chunkier rose gold down first. And then once my chunkier rose gold is down, I will use the skinny rose gold. And then this way I can make sure that I have complete and full coverage and there's no gaps. Once I'm done glittering my rose gold, I'm going to pull up those center pieces, and I'm going to do it while it's still wet. And then that way I have really crisp lines. If you wait till it dries, it can pull up your glitter, and you don't want that because then you have to go back and patch it up. So just do it while it's wet. If you're doing the epoxy method, you would just let it dry and cure, and then you'll go back and do that. For my middle piece, I am going to use Arteza paint, and I'm going to put it in my Mod Podge. I went ahead and picked a paint color that is closest to my chunky glitter. That way, when I go and I paint my sections and then I add my glitter on, with the chunky glitter, it's sometimes hard to get complete and full coverage, but if you paint it first in your paint, if you put the paint color in your Mod Podge, it gives you a better base, I guess is what I want to say. And then that way you won't see your chunky glitter, or you won't see your white through your chunky glitter. And with this part, I'm going to move kind of slow and try to watch my edges. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, because once you get done glittering and sealing it, you will go over it with washi tape or vinyl. So you don't have to worry too much about your edges. Now, I am going to start out with my chunkier glitter, which is Flynn. And once my chunky glitter is down, I will grab my thinner or my skinnier cut or whatever you want to call it, and I will sprinkle it over that. And then that way it will fill in any of your spots that you have that you might have missed or the chunky didn't adhere down good to. And then that just gives you fuller coverage, and it also helps give you a little bit of dimension having smaller and chunkier cuts. Now with this, the only bad thing about doing the Mod Podge method is you don't have much work time once you paint your Mod Podge paint mixture down. So you're going to want to move pretty quick, or you're going to have spots that are not completely covered, and then you'll have to go in and patch it up. So try to move as fast as you can, and you'll be good. And don't worry too much about your lines. Just try to get it done as fast as you can. And then once that is done, you're going to knock off any loose glitter. After you put your chunky and your finer cut in there, you'll just knock off all your loose ones. Make sure that you have no glitter that is stuck onto your rose gold. And once you have that completely done, and you're completely done glittering, and there's no white spots showing, and it looks completely covered, you are going to get some parchment paper and try to flatten out your chunky glitter as much as you can. And this will save you an arm when it's time to start epoxying your tumbler. Chunky glitter is sometimes a pain to work with, so just make sure you get it down as much as you can. Once you have it completely flattened, you're going to remove your blue vinyl that is right there. And once you're done with that, you can do a quick coat of epoxy. You can use polyacrylic to seal it, or you can just use triple thick spray or any sealer that you use. I use triple thick spray, and I'm going to do 2 coats. I don't want to have too much epoxy on it because I want to be able to fill when I do the vinyl. So we're going to do vinyl now. On to the next step. We are going to work on setting up the collage for our tumbler. This is my Silhouette software. I do not know anything about Cricut, so I cannot tell you how to do it on Cricut. I'm assuming you're going to pretty much do it the same way, but I'm not really sure because I don't have a Cricut. I've never even used one. But this is my Silhouette software. This is the exact template that I had just cut, or not just cut, but that I had cut to do the V-split with my glitter. It's the same exact one, size exactly the same. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to load my pictures or place my pictures in this collage exactly where I want them. You might have to pull them in and out and move them around however you want to set yours up. And the most important thing is you want to make sure that every line, like there's no blanks between your area. If there's a tiny one, that's fine, because you are going to be having some vinyl strips or washi tape or whatever you use. You can cover up a little bit of it, but try not to have a whole lot and definitely not big spaces. So we're just going to move this around. And another important thing, try not to get like their face too close to this line, because you don't want to cover up their face with your tape or your vinyl or whatever you use. Let me try to figure out how I want to do this. I think I'm going to do this one right here. So I'm going to pull it up enough and over enough to where there's not a space there. And then I'm going to pull this over here. Make sure it's covered. If you need to send it to the back, pull it forward, you can. And try to keep your black line right here. Pull forward so you have a guide of where your cut lines will be. I'm going to cut mine with scissors, but you could cut it with your machine if you need to. I'm going to literally print mine out just like this. Okay, I'm going to pull this picture up here. Don't want to cut off his head, so I'm going to pull it over. And I also don't want my little man covered too much. I'm going to pull this picture over here, and like right here, see, I don't want this to cover these areas, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this one over here so we don't have to worry about that, because I don't want to put her too much. So I'm going to pull it a little bit closer to Preston's head. Preston's my baby right here, so we don't cut off too much of his body right here. Then we'll put Addie right here. And I don't want to cut too much of her face when I put my tape on, so we're going to pull as much as we can right here. And then we're going to pull this one over. Do not worry about this blank space right here. I'm going to show you how you'll cover that, so it won't be an issue. I'm going to pull her up just a little bit and pull them up, because I want to have a little bit hanging over up here at the top. Don't worry too much about that. Right here. So we're going to pull this one down. And then we're going to pull this one down. Okay, so now this is exactly how I want my collage to look on my cup. And I am going to show you guys how to fix these blank spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on each picture. So this one's right here beside this blank space. I'm going to duplicate that picture. And then you see where this area is right here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my knife setting right there, and I'm literally going to slice this picture. Okay. sliced it. And I am going to pull it over, and I'm going to flip it. And then this way, this tree line right here will match perfectly up to that, where it looks like it was just a continuance from the clouds and the tree, and you don't even realize that that's not part of that picture. And then I'm going to send it to the back, so my lines go over it, and you just see there's no, it just looks like it was originally part of that picture right here. Okay, now we're going to go over onto this side. We're going to do the same thing over here. We are going to duplicate that picture. Then we're going to grab our knife setting, and we're going to cut as close to his head down here as we can, because that's a pretty big space right there. And then we're going to cut as close to his little head. And then we're going to pull that piece right here. We're going to duplicate it so it fits into that. And we are going to, or we're not going to duplicate it, we're going to flip it, sorry. So now it looks like it's just a continuance of the same clouds. And we're going to line it up to the edge. And I'm going to make it larger so it fits. And then I'm going to send it to the back. And that's what my collage is literally going to look like, okay? Now I'm going to pull my collage off of my pictures. Send that back. And we need to try to get this line picked up. We want to pick up this line. Not that. This is the hardest part probably. Is trying to pick up your line. If you need to move a picture to pick it up, that's fine. Just remember to pull it back down. Once that picture is back in place, you're going to go up to your top left corner, hit File, and then go into Print Properties. You'll choose the glossy setting, and you're also going to choose the best setting. Make sure it's either on portrait or landscaping, depending on what your printer is. I'm leaving mine on landscape. Okay, so now on to our next step, and that is applying our collage onto our tumbler. And I have sealed my tumbler about three times with sealer. I have not epoxied it. If you want to, you totally can. For sake of time, I didn't. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my picture, and I want it to be straight, and I'm just going to line it up kind of where I want it to be and make sure that it's going to fit perfectly. Because you want it to line up in the back. Make sure it's lining up here. And you can fill around your image, and you can fill the glitter. So you want to make sure that it doesn't cut off their heads or any of your important stuff. You just want to make sure that it's not going to cut off any of that. Okay? So now what I want to do is I'm just making sure that it fits, is I am going to lift one corner of my vinyl, and I'm going to cut it just like that. And when you do this, you want to make sure you're pulling and it's meeting up in that corner, okay? and I'm going to just press it down. And now that I got that section pressed down, I am going to start lifting up the rest. And you can just go in little sections to make sure your vinyl is going on straight. It's not going to be crooked. This part, you're really just going to want to take your time. You don't want to rush it. If you rush it, you're going to end up being crooked. You're going to have bubbles. So just kind of take your time as you're doing it. Smooth it out. Do it in little sections. It makes it easier. If you're doing it in sections, you won't have any pieces that try to, you know, stick down ahead of you. So just do it little sections, smooth a little bit out of a time. I'm going to use my handy dandy little tool. I love this tool because it has felt on it and it actually keeps from scratching the image. I got this tool from the Vinyl Craze. I will leave a link to it down in the description box. If you don't have one, you're definitely going to want to get one. I use it all the time for all my vinyl projects. Once I have it completely smoothed out around it, I'm going to move on to my top part of my cup, and I'm just going to pull it and flatten it down as much as I can around my edges. You're wanting to kind of go slow on this part too, because you don't want to rip your vinyl for one, or cause it to have any severe wrinkles or mess up the ink on your picture. So I'm just going to smooth mine out and just pull it up over the edge as much as I can. And once I am done smoothing it out and it's completely smooth and pulled up over the edge, I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife, and you're going to want to have a pretty sharp blade on your X-Acto knife. I just changed my blade out so it's brand new. And then that way, if you have a newer blade, it will keep your image from tearing or crumpling together as you're cutting off the edge. And this just makes for a nice, clean, easy cut around the top edge or the top rim of your cup. Then you'll pull out that excess vinyl, toss it to the side, and move on to your next part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tool, and I am going to go around the edge of my vinyl and my glitter. And this is why you don't want to put too much epoxy over it, and I just use a sealer, because you're going to want to be able to feel where that glitter is, and then that way you'll see where you need to trim off your vinyl around that line. So I always like to leave mine not epoxied, that way I can see it and feel it better. I'm blind, so I can't see really good, so this just helps me being able to feel it. Now, your lines do not have to be perfect, okay? When you're cutting this, it does not have to be perfect. You don't want to cut off too far from where your glitter is, but you are going to be covering it with washi tape or vinyl, so you don't have to be too hard on yourself on this, okay? Please ignore the top of my head. Yes, I know my hair is thin. I lost a lot of hair going through chemo, so you're just going to have to deal with my thinned out bald head, okay? So we're going to keep working on this, getting it as perfect as possible. And then once you get your edges cut, you're going to want to pull up that excess part. Now, because I did not epoxy mine first, you can put one coat of epoxy on it, and then that way when you do pull up your vinyl after you put it on, it won't pull up any of your glitter. I didn't, but you can choose to do whatever you need to do. And that is it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to start epoxying. I don't ever seal my printable vinyl. If you want to, you can. I don't, but you can. I've never had any issues with it bleeding through or anything like that. Now just making sure that there's no lines. And so I'm going to put 2 coats of epoxy on this, or at least until it's smooth, and then I will come back and show you guys the next step on how I do my lines and finish it on up. Now that I've epoxied it twice, I have lightly sanded over my chunky glitter and primarily where my vinyl is going to be. I am going to be using Cricut brand textured vinyl, and I do have a new blade on my X-Acto knife. You do not have to use vinyl. You can use washi tape, whatever you want. I did a few different settings on my washi tape, or on my vinyl, in different sizes, so I could pick out which one I wanted to use first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the thicker cut of it, and I'm going to go over where my vinyl meets my chunky, or my vinyl meets my glitter, and then my chunky meets my finer glitter. And I want to put that one down first, and then we'll go and we'll put another line beside it of the thinner cut vinyl. Once I get my first piece of vinyl on there, I'm going to trim it up, and then I will move on to my second piece of vinyl. You do not have to do yours like I do mine. Just do what is best for you, or whatever you're used to doing. Just make sure that your V's, when they meet up, that they are pretty close and they match, so they're equal to each other, because you don't want them to be crooked or your V's not being lined up once they meet each other. As for my vinyl, I'm not even really sure what size I cut. I just play around and cut sizes that I think would look best on my cup. You just need to do what's best for you, and just go from there. Now, once my vinyl is completely done and my strips of vinyl are completely done, and you have your thicker cut vinyl, you'll move on to your thinner cut one. I don't want to put mine on the outside because I don't want to cover up my kids' faces, and you don't want to cut off any, so I'm going to go on the inside and put another strip over the chunky. You don't have to do 2 sets of vinyl. I just do because it makes it pop, and it just kind of makes it a little bit flashier and just adds a little bit extra to it. But like I said, you can do what you want. This is just what I decided to do on this particular cup, and go from there. Now, once you're done with your vinyl, you can leave your vinyl just like this. You can add a decal, add a name, whatever you want. I'm actually going to end up adding a decal onto this one just because it's a gift and I wanted to add something a little bit extra on it. And then on this part right here, you're going to trim up all those little excess pieces. So for me, when I do mine, I like to make mine a little bit longer, and I will cut on the sides of it. And you want to make sure you don't overcut, because you don't want to have a gap in between it, and then you're going to have to go back and add another piece of vinyl. So I always cut a little bit over each other. It's really hard to explain. I'm probably not the best one at explaining that part, but I think you understand for the most part on how to do that particular area. And if you don't want to do 2 sets, you don't have to. I just choose to do it. So please just do what you want to do on that part. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my decal. I did pre-cut this, and I decided to double layer it just because I think it makes it pop a little bit more. You don't even have to add a decal here. This is just what I chose to do because the cup is for my mom, and I just wanted to tell her that she's awesome. And now that I have my decal on, I'm going to epoxy this 2 times, and then it will be completely done, and then you'll just need to clean it up and get it all set up and ready to go to your customer. And there you go. There is your finished product. One tip, make sure you use heat on it after you get your epoxy on and you pop all your air bubbles. You do not want air bubbles over your photos because it will make it so hard for you to see their face. So if you want a clear picture of their face, make sure you pop the bubbles. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial. If you have any questions, ask them below. I will leave everything that I used in the description box. If you liked my video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do, and I will see you guys next time.